So now it's time to clean up my CV joints and my half axles because that grease is crusty. So we need to be able to clean that up and so it'll drive really nice. And also just make sure it's really safe and safety wire it. Yeah, this is going to be such a fun episode, and there's going to be a ton of grease. So to take these apart, first I need to get off this stub axle, and in order to get that off, you have to kind of put a screwdriver in here and hammer it and kind of wedge it apart right into the paper gasket. And I'm going to replace that so it's all good, just so I don't damage any of the metal like collar pieces. And then we're going to be wedging off the boot using a hammer and another screwdriver. And I learned that these boots are actually attached to this collar piece, and so you can't actually get that apart. So if you're going to replace it, you have to replace the whole thing. And then I'm going to take this apart, soak it in oil eater, going to get rid of all of that grease, clean it off. So we powder coated it and put it in the oven, and then we clear coated it and put it in the oven, 200 degrees, 30 minutes. Boom! Best thing you've ever seen. Ooh, my glove. And then we put it all back together, and it looks brand spanking new. Okay, so this is really not coming off, and I do not want to risk damaging this CV joint. So I know there's a tool for this, so I'm gonna go grab that tool because we need that. So did you know that some auto parts stores have like a tool rental program? I have a slide hammer here, and it's super important that you have the right tools, so like, this is awesome. Okay, so we made this tool, so that way this will only push on the piece of the CV joint that's right alongside the splines, so that way there's no pressure on the cage or any of the bearings inside the CV joint, so we don't damage anything. Okay, so now that we got all those pieces off, I'm going to be taping up these ends and sandblasting the actual rod itself, and it will be time for powder coat. So I tried to sandblast them, and my media was like really, really fine, so I got this like black aluminum oxide. Hopefully this should do the trick. I mean, it's super, super tough. I was just feeling it. Now it's time to clear coat these things. Look at how clean this looks. So we just took it out of the oven. It's nice and cool. We let it cool down, and we cleaned this part off just to make sure, because some of the tape kind of melted just a little bit. But we just made sure it's super clean and that it'll slide on really, really well. So we have all our CV joints. We cleaned those. We dumped them into like a vat of grease, like crazy, or degreaser, not grease. We got rid of a vat of grease. This is our deconstructed CV joint. And now it's time to construct it again. So I've been watching some videos on making sure everything is the right way. So obviously the part with these pieces that go into this, the stub axle. The part with these pieces go to the stub axle, which is obviously going to be the outside. There's also a line that indicates that it's the outside, but you can tell with this. Now let's put the CV joint together. So the tricky thing with this one is making sure which side is the front and which side is the back. So which side is going to go in and which side is going to face outward. So the inside of this piece is going to be wider. So it's going to be the bigger side. So let me just, okay, that one is there. Now we know which is the bigger side, which is this one, and that's going to go in towards the bar. So it's going to go down on the table here. Okay, now we have this piece, and we have two sides to this piece, and you can see there's a washer that goes up against this, goes right here, and you can see where it rubs in. So that obviously is going to go inside. So to fit this in here, you have to put it at an angle. Perfect. You have this piece here, see how that's tiny? And then see how this part is wide? So I'm going to make sure that it goes tiny to wide, tiny to wide, tiny to wide. So I'm going to put 3 on one side, and then I'm going to flip it, and then I put 3 on the other side. The last one is always the trickiest. It's good to put a little grease on it before, so that way it slides really good on your axle. Don't forget to put the boot on first. So this part's tricky, but it's helpful if you go around with one of these kinds of tools. So like a little nylon pry bar or something like that. That is on and ready. As a reminder, make sure this piece is on. Make sure this little washer is on. So it has a concave side and a convex side. The convex side is going to face in. So the top of the mountain is going to face in. Right there. Make sure that goes on first. Do not forget that. That may have happened. Okay, now it's time to load up the CV joint with grease. And when I say load up, I mean load up. 4.1 ounces per joint, according to Porsche. So it's moly grease, so it's just like decorating a cake. Make sure you have some to put inside of here as well. So to get this onto the splines, it's really important that you drive it evenly down. So rather than just taking a hammer and going like this, I have this 32mm socket, which I think I used for taking off my steering wheel.
I don't have a size socket.
And you just kind of put it on top of it, and it only hits that piece that's on top of the spline, so the inner piece of the CV joint. You're just going to hammer it right in the middle. Snap ring time. Ugh. Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to double check by hammering it a little bit on all the sides. Perfect, all in place. Now it is time to wipe this part down, wipe just the outside part and the immediate, this little lip here, so that way we can put the paper gasket on. I want to be very careful with that. Paper gasket. Perfect. I actually did the other half axle already because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. And it's a good thing that we practiced that, or we did that one first, because we definitely had some issues and I had to re-rent the slide hammer because I had to get it off again. It was rough, but we got through it. It was just because we had left it on and then it went at a weird angle, so then we had to completely redo that side of the half axle. But the other side went on really easy. Okay, I'm putting on the stub axle on this side. So these bolts here are what's going to snug together this stub axle and the boot together. And then we also have the snore washers on here, on these guys, so they'll lock. So this is an 8mm triple square, and I'm going to snug these up together, and then we're going to use the torque wrench and make sure it's all torqued. Before I put the stub axle on, it's very important to the phasing of the two joints here that you mark, or you know, this is the big side and it's on the pin here. So I'm gonna write a big B here. So on the outer gear of the CV, there's two things. So there's the long big one here and there's the short little tiny one here. As you can see there, long and big. This is gonna be important later because you want the other side to be opposite of this side in order to phase it. Okay, we're gonna adjust this to 31. So this is at 31 foot-pounds, and we're gonna kind of tighten this similar to how you would tighten the lug bolts on a wheel. So you're gonna go kind of like in a star shape, so that way it goes on evenly. Got it. That's it. Wait, was that it? Got it. Okay, now it's time to safety wire this. So we have these safety wire plier twister tools here. Literally the coolest thing ever. Okay, super cool tool. These were from the care package from 914 Rubber. Super cool. I remember when I opened them, I was like, what is this? So this is super important, especially on this part right here, because these things are notorious for backing out because there's just so much grease and there's so much kind of pressure on them. And so if you safety wire them, basically what's going to happen is if one starts to back out, the other one's going to tighten up, so they kind of leverage each other. How these guys work is basically you squeeze it at the top. So you're going to squeeze it at the top, and then you have to squeeze it really hard though. And then this piece here slides in and locks this little L in place. And then you pull on this, and it twists it. And now I'm just going to cut these little pieces off and tuck them in so that way it doesn't poke anything. Now I'm just going to do the other side and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So we powder coated it, degreased it, re-greased it, put on new boots, safety wired it, phased it, and it is looking good. This is going to go right onto the transaxle and I'm so excited to put this back in.